Mother is upset I use my first name in class. Obligatory, this happened about 2 years ago. I teach philosophy and epistemology to high schoolers. I'm also fairly young for a high school teacher. I introduce myself as Faye, my given first name, which has been my given name since birth, to my students. Well, I got an email from a parent reading, Madame Betancourt, this is Karen and I'm Kevin's mother. I'm deeply disturbed that you allow students to call you by your first name and believe this is unprofessional and confuses children. My child's test scores clearly reflect this, as your class is the only one he is struggling in. And as he has maintained an outstanding academic performance, it is clear that you are the problem. I highly suggest that in order to better teach my child, you reflect on this and begin to use your professional name. So I responded, Karen, thank you so much for reaching out to me. I'm awfully glad you are so concerned with your child's performance in my class. As you might not be aware, I do not grade homework or tests as official standing, and they only go on to show an empiricist view of one's performance. Don't worry, this means the grade you see in the system will be different from the final grade, as your child will have 100% in my class. This was made clear in my syllabus. You should also note that I attach my comments for every assignment, and include an annotated copy of your child's exams and essays so that they may see where they need to improve. If you have specifics about concepts your child is struggling with and ways that might better help him learn these concepts, I'd be more than happy to meet with you, over coffee or tea, to discuss it. So she responds, the annotations are incredibly vague and abstract and offer little insight into how my child, who is brilliant, may improve. However, I see you mark him wrong every time he refers to as Mademoiselle Betancourt and replace it with Faye. It is illogical to ask of a child to indulge in using such a silly name. I highly advise you quit marking my child wrong for using your professional name in his essays. Likewise, I believe that as you are his teacher, you should use your professional name. So I decide to be petty and respond, thank you for your response. I appreciate how illogical and unsound your argumentation is, as this is a perfect example of Hume's law. I shall be using this to model in-class examples of bad argumentation from now on. Thank you for the free class materials. I got a response back from her but didn't respond. First of all, a class where everyone's gonna get 100 and you only get marked to, actually learn? Sounds like a pretty good deal for me, even just for high school. This entitled parent is crazy. They were told that there's absolutely nothing wrong, and it should be the teacher's decision how they get called, right? And also, just so everyone knows about Hume's law, I didn't, I had to look it up. It's basically the idea of someone making an argument of, oh, this is how things should be because this is how they are, kind of thing, and it's like a logical fallacy as far as I can tell. Basically, entitled parent made a crap argument and is going to be used as class material. That's pretty good. We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description. Story 2. My parents cost me money. I'm dyslexic. I own a wedding venue. It's a heritage-listed homestead. It's quite beautiful and it's easy to get great photos here. I've also allowed 3 of my cousins to have their weddings here for mates rates prices. So my parents believed that my younger brother was having his wedding here too. However, my brother's new wife wanted to get married at the same place where her parents got married 4 hours away. My parents, who were not invited to the wedding, showed up at my venue and made a huge scene at another lovely couple's wedding. I wasn't there. I was my brother's best man. I left on Friday and came back on Tuesday to this BS. I was so horrified by what they had done, I gave back the couple half of what they paid. Luckily, the couple was so sweet about the whole thing. Now I'm wondering if I can sue. Weird that parents would show up to a wedding they weren't invited to. I guess it was their own kids, but still weird. I don't know if this is really entitled. Well, yeah, no, it is. It's entitled. They felt entitled to show up to the wedding, were angry when it wasn't there, and then got mad at the couple who was getting married. I've changed my mind. Yeah, absolutely entitled. Story 3. Mom just took my paycheck because she did my laundry once? I got home today from work to my mom snatching my paycheck out of my hands. She said she deserves it because she did all the chores around the house, which isn't true. I did a lot before going to work. This is the biggest check I've gotten in the longest time, and all because she did my laundry? I've been doing my own and others' laundry since I was taught, and I never said a thing. My dad got home not long after, and thankfully he's on my side. My mom hasn't given me my check back, but my dad is trying to talk to her. What can I do? Okay, if I'm understanding how checks work properly, which I think I am, she can't even cash the check, right? She just took it to spite you? And for doing laundry? Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. I get it. Parenting is a really hard job, but thinking that you're entitled to money that your child makes is absurd to me and always will be. I always am of the belief that your child did not ask to be born, and therefore, anything that you do for them is kind of out of obligation that you brought them into the world, at least until they're an adult. So yeah, this is absurd. Story 4. How my wife ruined her mom's Mother's Day by treating her like a mom. My mother-in-law is an annoying person, to say it in the nicest way. She has extremely low self-worth, and she compensates that by forcing the whole world to revolve around her. As family who interact with her regularly, we are forced to treat her like a queen every day, every minute. If we don't, then there will be drama. All the way from pouting, going to her room, fainting, leaving the house, to full-blown breakdowns, including saying things like, "Why should I live on this planet anymore if no one cares about me?" Yeah, to see an old lady say she will kill herself just because we don't give her a few minutes of attention is a bizarre thing to witness. So it's exhausting to be around her, but what else can my wife and sister-in-law do? She is their mom, and they both try their darn best to make her feel special. But they would also like to interact with her as their mother, too, not just as some out-of-touch royalty. They would like to crack jokes, chat about general things, and share their problems, not having to constantly be worried what statement might tick her off. When they were kids in her orbit, things were fine as she controlled them, and that made her feel like she was the center of attention. Now that they are married, have families of their own, and that she is not the anchor of the family, she has started becoming more and more demanding that we perform some elaborate rituals to make her feel special. This is extremely exhausting. Now on to the actual event itself. Mother and father-in-law have traveled to our country and are staying with us for a short time to help with the kids, as we all live halfway across the globe. My wife planned an elaborate Mother's Day event centered around mother-in-law, even though she herself is a mom too. Included in that is lunch in a popular ethnic cuisine restaurant. By the way, had she not planned it herself, there would be a snarky comment at the end of the day saying, "Seems you don't care about your mom enough to plan something for me. I was waiting the whole day for you to do something." Anyway, morning went uneventful as we had been pampering the grown-up toddler, and mother-in-law was quite jubilant. We go into the restaurant, and I and our elder one go in to set up the table as my wife is bringing the others, mother and father-in-law and the little one, in. My 2-year-old, the real toddler, decides to throw a tantrum for toddler reasons, but then mother-in-law sees this beautiful garden in front of the restaurant and wants my wife to take a picture. Mother-in-law doesn't care about anything and forces my wife to take several pictures as my wife is holding a crying, fussing, and kicking toddler on her hip. Having basked in the glory of being in the center of attention, mother-in-law is satisfied enough and they all come in. My wife is ticked from the events but tries her best to be cheerful. Waiter comes in to take the order, and right then, mother-in-law decides to go to the restroom. My wife asks her to order before going, as kids will get hangry if we wait too long. Big mistake. My wife asked in a normal tone, a regular conversational tone, instead of a pleading or pleasing pampering tone. How dare we order her royalty on what to do? That was strike one. As me and my wife are looking at the bazillion choices and trying to order for our kids, ourselves, spice level, etc., we got absorbed into ordering without paying attention to the most important person. Mother-in-law wasn't the center of attention for 2 full minutes. How dare we? That's strike 2. We don't notice that and ask her what she wants. She asks if they have a particular ethnic dish, which is a regular staple we have almost every day at home, like a grilled cheese sandwich. That too in an indifferent, meek tone. She was indirectly implying that she was just a nobody because of strike 1 and 2, and so she is ordering some peasant food. That was our cue to realize our mistake, prostrate before her, beg her forgiveness, and bring the world back into alignment before things go downhill. We failed to notice that change in tone, which is strike 3. Instead, my wife suggests, "Mom, we have that almost every day at home, so why don't you..." Mother-in-law cuts her off saying, "I know that! Are you saying I don't know that?" and storms to the restroom. We are all figuring out what the frick just happened, and we finish ordering. Mother-in-law comes back and unloads onto my wife about how she had disrespected her. We brought her to this country, and ever since then, my wife has made it her mission to do nothing but continuously humiliate her, and mother-in-law starts crying. I quickly realized what had transpired, but my innocent wife, whose heart is only filled with love and not such evil games, doesn't realize drama my mother-in-law wants. Instead, she is trying to understand how suggesting that the dish is a regular staple at home is humiliating. And mother-in-law goes, "You're implying I'm dumb and don't even know this. You've ruined Mother's Day. All daughters do special things on Mother's Day, and here you are ruining mine." And a few other delectable quotes. My wife says again and again that's just a regular thing to say to your mom, but mother-in-law is adamant that my wife humiliated her by implying she is dumb for not knowing it's a staple dish we regularly eat at home. And she storms off to sit outside. Seriously, that was the entire discussion for a full 5 minutes. It was extremely bizarre to see a 60-year-old woman throw a tantrum and accuse her daughter because she said it's a regular staple we eat at home. Normally, we would run after her, apologize, and beg for her to come back, and keep apologizing throughout the lunch, which is what she wanted after 3 strikes. But this time we were so over this BS, having been through similar ones many times. We just sat and ate in peace without an extra side of drama. But my wife was heartbroken. She does all this planning and wanted to be a good daughter. She wanted her mom to feel special, and in the end she had ruined Mother's Day by talking to her mom as a mom and not as royalty. So a 60-year-old woman started crying in the middle of lunch rush in a popular restaurant, all because we didn't give her attention for 5 minutes while we were busy ordering food for kids. There are hundreds of such stories, but this is just clearly the most WTF thing. Oh man, that was a long boy. Basically, there's not much to say. This is just like peak entitled parent. Absolutely insane, narcissistic too. It's got every wonderful trait wrapped into one 6-year-old woman. Honestly, I'm kind of just wondering, it's like, where's the father-in-law? Why did the father-in-law not come out? Are they divorced? Cause that would kind of make sense. I'm just saying. Story 5. My entitled mother tried to rent my spare room out to her friends. So this happened about 18 months ago, but I only just remembered when I came across an entitled parent story on TikTok. Basically, I began living above a pub that I own. It has a large 2-room living room connected by an archway and a curtain across it. My youngest sister and her friends began staying in one of the living rooms that had the privacy of the curtain. My office was the other living room. This flat also has 2 large bedrooms, mine is the biggest. My mother was helping me set up the pub since I had also gone back to university a year prior. My mother hired a chef who lived on an island nearby, like Isle of Man, who had been her friend years back but I had never met. She had offered him a job here because he had been looking to move back home. Then, all of a sudden, she tells me he'll be staying in the second bedroom for a while until he gets a place sorted. I hated the idea and tried to protest a lot because I did not want a strange man living with me, and this was the first place that I had to myself. I hoped to enjoy being on my own. My mother mentioned that it'll only be a little while, a couple of months max. It didn't matter anyway because the guy ran. My mother's best friend, who had helped me sort the pub out a lot and I had known for years, was also in between places at this point, so after the first guy left, I suggested she move her stuff. She said it would only be for a month while she finds somewhere else, so I said, no worries, and she moved her stuff in. Then it turned out my mother's other best friend also started to need a place to live because he didn't want to live at home with his parents anymore. So my mom invited him to live in my flat. When she told me this, I questioned where he would even stay. She replied, he'll have your room, you stay in that living room with the curtain, and then when first best friend moves out, second best friend will move into that room and you'll get your room back. When I responded, I didn't really know this best friend that well. In the 10 to 15 years of their friendship, I met the guy only a handful of times. My mother responded, oh, it's only until he gets a place, it'll be about 6 months. Whenever I pushed or said I didn't feel comfortable or I wasn't going to give up my room, she would get annoyed and say she's just trying to help her friend. That Christmas, the first best friend's stuff was still there, but she wasn't staying there, she had her own place now, but she just left a lot of her stuff here for a while. My sister came back from uni for the holidays, and at that time we were discussing that in the summer break she would live here too. My youngest sister was still living in the living room with her friends as well. Then my mother said, since first best friend has a place now, second best friend can move in. I replied saying that my sister is living here, but that means my mother had a spare room, so why can't her friend live with her? Her response, I don't want them, the second best friend and his girlfriend, living with me. I like my space. I replied, well, you know him better than I do, so I don't want him living with me either. She responded that he's desperate for a place to stay and it's mentally taking a toll on him, so I replied again that he should just live with her then. She actually got angry because she was just helping her friend. He never ended up moving in, but it felt like my mother was always offering my spare room up to anyone that walked by. My boyfriend actually put a lock on all the doors inside for safety when the first guy stayed for a week. The audacity of this mother to rent out someone's space that isn't hers, like even if it's her daughter's, she doesn't own that place and she's like choosing to rent it out to people that her daughter doesn't know. Does her mother not know how suspect it is to have a man you don't know to stay over when you're a woman? I feel like she should. Weird, dude. It's super weird. This mom is crazy. Story 6. Older entitled parents. I hope this fits. My daughter just graduated high school, second in her class, headed to a top-notch university, and she's beautiful too. Although she looks a bit like me, so I'm biased. Anyway, here comes the entitled part. My parents. My daughter was born 18 years ago as my son. She is not my son today, she is my daughter, period. She worked her ass off and deserved to be celebrated at her graduation and every day. She was introduced with her chosen name and not her dead name. Her diploma is also in her name. Here's the entitled part. My parents expected me to disown my daughter because of their transphobic beliefs. You see, I'm a huge POS in their eyes because I chose my daughter over my parents. My entitled parents, who didn't raise me, expected to be more important than my child. They refused to attend graduation, their loss. Her speech was amazing, and are now posting the fabulous religion Facebook posts about burning in hell. I am a proud POS and will always choose my child. The Facebook posts about burning in hell, gold. Love it. I love it so much. They're so funny. Those types of people don't even realize how ridiculous they're being. I absolutely understand someone who's older not completely understanding identity politics. That's cool. Honestly, it's whatever. Whether they want to figure it out for themselves or they're not interested, I guess it doesn't matter as long as they're not bothering anyone. But these people are bothering someone and they're making a huge stink about it, and yeah, just so entitled to think that they deserve to be chosen over their daughter's, I think, child? I guess OP didn't say their gender, so their daughter, their son, whatever. Either way, their child said that they didn't even raise them, so like, look, you have lost your right to have any sway over this whatsoever. Stay out of it. Don't attend graduation. Who cares? Get out of here. Story 7. My monster-in-law gets mad because we visited my parents for 30 minutes. I, a 23-year-old female, and my fiancé, 22-year-old male, are due to be married by the end of 2023. We have been together for 4 years. There have been many occasions where my mother-in-law has chosen not to include me or go against what I have to say. She is bipolar and fiancé doesn't like his mom. He's the third oldest out of 4 boys. But besides the changing plans last minute for holidays, even though my parents communicated to her what their plans were weeks in advance, this incident makes me so angry. My fiancé and I went to my parents' house for breakfast on a Sunday because it had to be a few months since me and my fiancé got to visit. We stayed for maybe 30 to 45 minutes at my parents' house and I had to get to work. My work let me go home early, so I went home to my fiancé and he said, "Want to go out to dinner?" And I said, "Absolutely." We got in the car and as we were driving, we got a call from brother-in-law. "Where are you guys? Are you coming to dinner?" My fiancé said, OP and I are heading to dinner now, so did you have something planned? My brother-in-law said, "Well, yeah, family dinner is always on Sunday. Mom's not gonna be happy." My fiancé then said, "You guys always have family dinners on Sunday when OP has to work. We keep asking if we can do them on Friday so she can be included, but Mom's not budging. OP and I are going to dinner because she got off work early. If Mom has a problem, she can call me." And he hung up. Not even 5 seconds later, my mother-in-law calls him and screams, "What? So her family gets to see you and I don't? Do you know how that makes me feel?" My fiancé says, "Mom, we went to breakfast for 30 minutes. I haven't seen them in over a month. I see you at least 3 times a week. Don't yell at me or get mad because I'm spending time with OP's family. It wasn't a big deal. Because you're acting this way, I'm not coming over for a while. If you can't respect OP and I, then you need to reevaluate yourself." It was silent for a minute, then she says in a pissed-off, sassy voice, "So I guess you're not coming to dinner then. Fine." And she hung up. My fiancé looked over at me and he said, "See, this is what I mean. She's a jerk." I said, "I wish she liked me." My fiancé pulled into the restaurant and said, "I know you do, but I want you to know that no matter what she says to you, it doesn't matter. I love you, so don't listen to that jerk." God, I love this man. Definitely an entitled parent, but if I may say one thing, I kind of think the fiancé, should have given a heads up, just been like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing." Come on, out of courtesy, if you do something every week and you're breaking tradition or routine, I feel like you should have just given a heads up, that's all. Obviously, mother's reaction is super overblown and ridiculous, but a heads up would have been nice, no? That being said, I also understand if he was scared of what her reaction was going to be and so didn't want to call her. I get it. Trust me, I get it.